Hey everybody, Chris here, the Day-to-Day Apologist. Welcome to my question and answer video where someone asks me a question and I answer it as biblically sound and day-to-day applicable as possible. So with that said, it's Valentine's Day. I hope you're all enjoying yourselves. And with that, let's answer today's question. Today's question is there something wrong with being single? I think there's quite a lot of people thinking that tonight and today as Valentine's Day has been going on. And you know what? It's weird because I looked up on this statistical research website, which I'll put down in the description for you to look at, that the amount of single households, at least according to 2017, is quite a lot. And there's quite a lot of single people here in America. I'll give you the high and the low. So they broke it down into states. It's not technically a state, it's a province. But the District of Columbia scored the highest, 45.2%. So I guess being a politician is kind of a lonely life and a single life. So I don't know. And then Utah scored 19.6%. I'm guessing that's because of the Mormons. Moving on. So with all these states that are in between the 19% and 45%, that's a lot of single people. But yet, why is it that single people feel so lonely? Why did I feel so lonely growing up as a teenager who was saved and going into my adult years feeling like I needed to be with someone? Well, I feel we're going to answer that right now. So these are just my opinion, but I believe these are true. Comment down below if you disagree or agree. I want to hear. So I think 3 reasons. 1, I think, honestly, Satan is just trying to make people think that Jesus is not enough. If he can get people to think that Jesus is just not enough for them, then they're going to be like, I give my life to Jesus, but that's the end. And I just feel like with single people, they really struggle with the idea of being complete because our culture, second point, our culture just focuses on human relationships as being the fulfillment of the soul. But the fulfillment of the soul is not human connection. It's a spiritual connection. And that's one of the things that Jesus did when he died and rose from the grave. Is we now have a very unique, very, very close connection with Jesus. And I just think that our culture they just don't get it. And a lot of it is because they're lost. And thirdly, Christians, be kind to me, people. But I think churches and Christian communities, they just don't really do a good job making single people feel equal to married people and to people with kids. We got programs for all those people, but single people, especially as they get older and older, I feel like Christians just are like, I can't ask them anymore when they're going to get married because they're like 55. So I'm just going to smile and ask them how they're doing. And I don't think doing things like having a singles group gathering, unless people communicate that's what they want, I don't think that's very complimentary. In fact, I think Paul had the best understanding that single life and married life both have its benefits, but both were equal in God's eyes. So I'll get to 1 Corinthians 7 in just a second. So here's the truths. The truths. There are quite a few people in the Bible that are single. Samuel, John the Baptist, the prophet Jeremiah, Miriam, who was Moses' sister, Paul, and of course Jesus, just to name a few. So just as much as there are married people, there are quite a few single people that were used by God. Now, let's talk about Paul. Paul was single, and he was proud of being single. In fact, he says when he's writing about married people to the church of Corinth and single people, he addresses in chapter 7, verse 8 in 1 Corinthians that it's good to stay unmarried as I do. I'm paraphrasing. You could read 1 Corinthians 7 for yourself. He also says in verses 32 through 35, Paul points to the fact that single people actually have a benefit to being single. They can focus all their energy and concerns on the Lord's affairs. Married people have an obligation, which God calls as good, to consider the other person, your husband or your wife, and to consider them before just doing certain things. I can't just go to Zimbabwe because the Lord leans me on the heart. He's got to lean on my wife's heart. Single person can just go, the Lord's leading me to Zimbabwe, I'm debt free, and I'm going to go and serve the Lord there, period. So he said that single people just have this easier ability. But I don't feel like that's often talked about in the church, and it's certainly not preached about often in the church. And we don't make a notion to single people and say, hey, you're just as cool and unique as I am. Who cares if you don't have someone personally? And I wish people had told me that growing up. A few guys did, but for the most part, I didn't hear it consistent enough. So let's wrap it up, shall we? It is important that and we understand that God does not place marriage and singleness higher than one or the other. It's equal. He shows no favoritism. The Bible says that. So we are his children, and each person is called to either serve in a married context or to serve in a single context. People need to be reached that are single by single people. People that need to be reached married need to be reached married. And of course, God can do single people to married people and married people to single people, but there's certain focuses. Also, imagine if we shared the message that being single is special and you're cool because you've honored God in that calling, like Paul was saying. You know, what would that do to the generations that come after us and the message that they would share with the unsaved generations? We would be able to combat this sexually addicted message and relationship focused push by our culture. And I believe that's the way to combat that. Finally, I leave you with the truth. If you're single and you're watching this video, saved or unsaved, God thinks you're amazing. He loves you. And you don't need anybody to feel special. You just need to spend time with Jesus to feel special. When I found my wife, Catherine, who I love with all my heart, and she's amazing, I came to the point where I was like, you know what? I'll just serve God and I'm all right being single. And oddly enough, he gave me my wife. Now, that doesn't mean he'll do that with you, but I came to the understanding that being called to a single life is not a leper's life. It's special and unique. And to those of you that are married, encourage single people with being okay with being single. And by the way, don't let Satan tell you that all these lies and junks, it's just not true. The world's pushing for a message. It's not true. So God bless you guys today. Jesus stands at the door at your heart. If you don't know Jesus, he could be your Valentine's tonight and for the rest of your life. God bless you guys. I hope you enjoy this video. It's longer than usual, but it's the truth. Have a happy Valentine's Day. And may God bless you.